You know, that argument is so absurd that it doesn't even merit answering. If people didn't drink as much, I doubt very seriously if the liquor industries would really support this. The evidence is just to the contrary. Every state which has brought in liquor by the drink, consumption per person has radically increased, not decreased.
Dr. Gallaway, if you're so much against liquor by the drink, why doesn't your organization go after the private club industry in Texas?
Quite frankly, we think the private club situation is a farce, and probably the legislature ought to deal with it if liquor by the drink is not is defeated. In my opinion, if liquor was not already a commodity that was authorized and legalized in America, and were being brought before the Food and Drug Administration of our nation today, they would not authorize the sale of it because of its detrimental effect upon humanity. Now, we see a lot of things, cyclamates and others, being discarded with far, far less harmful effect upon the human body than alcohol. But realistically, the people of the state probably are just not going to go that way. And so you fight the battles that you can win.
Well, of course, this leaves us in the position, based on the Attorney General's opinion, of being totally in violation of the law should we continue now that we are aware of such opinion. I think that we would be remiss if we moved forward without either a new opinion or an opinion that changes the old one or some such. I personally feel that we're in violation if we move one step further now.
Again, I want to emphasize that the officer in the field is charged with making instant snap judgments, and oftentimes he's faced with the responsibility of making that judgment which hinges on the outcome of whether or not a man lives or dies. He's obligated by law to undertake this responsibility, and I think by and large our officers are fulfilling this responsibility with a great deal of discretion and integrity. And I want everyone in this community to understand that when an officer is in the field doing his duty and he is following the guidelines set forth by state statutes and policies of this department, that I'm going to do everything within my power to keep people from indicting him for doing what the public pays him to do.
Ted, unfortunately, the countdown graph is a little bit disappointing this year. Would you interpret it for us?
Jerry, I'd be glad to. Here we have a graph showing the days before the job fair and the number of pledges for jobs that we've had, and the green indicates last year. So it shows you that we came up here at about 4,000 jobs just before the job fair, and the red line is this year. And as you can see, here we are 6 days before the job fair, and there's one holiday in there, and unfortunately, and we're only up to about 1,700 jobs. Unfortunately, the companies, some of them that made this spurt here at the end for last year, are already in the figures for this year, which is part of our problem.
Why is that? Why is the problem?
Jerry, undoubtedly, the softness in our economy is affecting it, and rightly so. I think we were a little bit unrealistic in saying that we could get 5,000 jobs. We didn't anticipate the degree of the softness. And I'm sure this is the primary reason.
Commissioner Price, you just put a letter on District Attorney Henry Wade's desk. What is in that letter, and what are you asking?
I was asking the district attorney for his legal opinion concerning the meeting yesterday in which 2 members abstained from voting, 2 members voted in the affirmative, and 1 member voting no, whether or not this constitutes a legal action of the Commissioner's Court or not. There is a second question in the letter, and that is, under Texas law, is the situation where those that abstain from voting treated the same as those that would have been absent for a meeting. This would have to do, of course, with the number of a quorum, and this would be beneficial to know.
Now, District Attorney Henry Wade said yesterday that he felt that the action actually pulled out the commissioners from the war on poverty. Do you agree with this?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. Mr. Wade is our attorney, and that's the reason I'm asking him at this point for his opinion. I have not talked to him previous to this, and I feel that he certainly is capable and qualified to answer this type for us.
I heard of this last fall, and some things make sense and some don't, and this didn't make sense because Oronase, its only effect, not only Oronase, but these other drugs. Oronase is the one that was being tested, but any of these drugs that I have listed there that are what they call sulfonylureas, they work by enabling the patient to put out his own insulin, and that should be beneficial. If anything, it should keep the blood sugar under control and do him good instead of harm. The worst it would do is no good. You know, the disease had progressed far enough by the time he was put on Oronase that you couldn't reverse things.
I most certainly believe that there has been a concerted effort on the part of some members of this community to bring this incident out of context, and also to bring this incident before the public in an effort to bring about an incident by putting out false information. This information that's here in writing, distributed by SCLC members, is certainly not true. It's false. And I think it's an effort on their part to make something of an incident which they're not aware of what actually happened.
How many witnesses were interviewed, and did all of them contend that the boy was shot while he was lying on the ground?
Most of the witnesses interviewed at first indicated that the officer had shot the suspect while he was lying on the ground. And when they were questioned by the FBI, they changed their stories very quickly and indicated that they did not see the shooting at all. They only heard the shots and the shotting.
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that during my 6 years in Austin, I've never been absent on any record vote that's come up before the legislature during my course of time there. I think that when a man hires out to do your job, he ought to be present and on the job and get $1 worth of work for $1 worth of pay. And my record as far as senators is concerned is that this last year, there was only one senator had a worse attendance record than he did. And I think this is something the voters are entitled to know, who's on the job, who's working. And he's tried to make a lot about how he's a big leader and everything, but talked about how he's been in committee meetings and everything. Of course, what he doesn't say is that the rules prohibit committees from meeting while the Senate is in session, just as it does in the House. And so I think being on the job and being willing to tend to responsibilities and being able to serve the people that you agreed to serve, I think is of paramount importance during the course of the campaign.
As a matter of fact, at the last special session of the legislature, I was there 97.3% of the time, which I think ought to get you an A at least as far as attendance is concerned. I've also pointed out to the junior bar today that if you went back and looked at President Nixon's attendance as he was a member of the Senate, or President Kennedy's either, you'd find that they had missed considerable more than I have, and that the price of leadership in the Senate is the fact that you're going to miss some roll call votes in the Senate on unimportant issues. We feel that there's ample evidence throughout the nation that if liquor by the drink is authorized in Texas, there will be an increased number of outlets, approximately 7 times as many as there are today. And this will radically increase consumption. This will also, very definitely in our opinion, increase accidents on the highway, more homes broken up, and therefore this is a moral and ethical decision. We oppose it on that basis.